Yeah.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to Money Matters. I'm Renee Cannon, the pastor of Temple of Praise, the Seventh-day Adventist Church located in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm here with our economist and our treasurer, Dr. Walter Simmons. And today we're dealing with an important topic of family finance. So you should go out and get your husband, your wife, go get your sons and daughters. Everybody needs to be a part of this thing because we need to focus about how we can, we need to focus on rather about how we as families can be strong financial units. And I want to go ahead and move forth into a spiritual nugget or biblical justification that we'll have this evening. And I'm coming to you from the book of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 through 16. And this is a parable of Jesus. As many of you know, this is the parable of lost things and such in that series that he has. But Luke chapter 15, we're just looking at verses 11 through 16 this evening. I've got it on the screen. The Bible says this. Then Jesus said, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. Lord, have mercy. So he divided to them his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, but no one gave him anything. And here we have this prodigal son, or rather this parable of the individual that is called the prodigal son, Doc Simmons. And the text says, that this young man, he's in the house and he starts coming of age. He's coming of the age where he starts smelling himself, and he starts imagining that he's the man and deserving of his own independence. So he gathers up all the little nerve he's got, and he goes before his father, and he
feeling entitled.
And look at him. He makes this demand. He says, "Look, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me." Now, this is an amazing statement when you look at the text, because what he's asking for is his inheritance. And as many of you know, you don't generally receive an inheritance while somebody is still living, but you receive an inheritance once that person has died. So he's essentially saying, Father, you're dead to me. But look at his father. His father gives him his portion of goods, and he goes off into this far country. And the Bible says that that he waste all of his substance with this prodigal or this worthless living. And the text says that when he had spent all, that a famine arose in the land, and he began to be in want, or he began to be very poor. And Dr. Simmons, this is, if I can, parenthetically park this thing right here, this is kind of what you've been talking about every single week, the importance of budgeting and such.
Yes, indeed.
Because this person was not in charge or did not know about his expenses and such, he wound up blowing all of the money he had, and he became poor. Well, we know how the story goes. He comes to himself, he comes home, the loving father embraces him. But I want you to pay attention to what happened prior to him even leaving. This is important for the discussion of family finance. Looking here in verse 12, the Bible says this. It says, look, he calls the father and says, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. And it's all right there. Give me the portion of goods that falls to me. What this says in the text is that the father and the family as a whole, they had already had a plan in place. The father had been making income for these years and years, and he had been putting it away, knowing that one day he was going to pass away and he was going to have some funds to give to his sons. And what this should encourage you and I of today is that as families, we should also too have plans. As families, we should be prepared for what is going to happen to us in the event that we pass away, or that some emergency comes and we need to give some of our funds to a husband, a wife, or a son, or a daughter. As families, we should be developing financial spending plans. So this evening, I'm done with the preaching and such this evening, but we want to go ahead and start hearing about the importance of developing a family spending plan. And at this moment, you can go ahead and take us away, Doc.
Well, Pastor, you have to look at the dad, the father. And this father, he had a plan. He had a financial plan. He had a financial strategy.
Yes.
And the nice thing about it is that it seemed like his family knew of the plan, so there was transparency. His son knew about it. His son was a little bit, some little arrogance, feeling entitled. So he said, "I want, like the typical generation we're living. I want it now.
Yes.
I don't want to wait until you die. Give me my portion, and I know how to use it." And as we saw what happened with him. But again, the father. So what are some of the things that, let's take that to the modern family, What are some of the things you think this father did? I'm sure he had his bank accounts and so on. And, in a two-person household these days, the question becomes, should we have a joint bank account? Should we have separate bank accounts? Again, family dynamics is pretty much complicated these days. When I got married 25 years ago, my wife and I did everything jointly because I guess we didn't have any money anyway. So we had to do everything jointly. But now people come into marriage, people come into relationship at different financial stages, different financial endowment, and in some cases, I think it's prudent to have individual accounts, and I also think it's very important to have a joint account. And you can use the joint account for common expenses, the individual accounts for, let's say, business, for tax purposes and so on. It may be better to have individual accounts, but there must be transparency. I mean, each individual should know what's happening.
Yeah.
Because we've heard the horror stories, especially the consequences that many wives, after going through a divorce, realize that you cannot claim financial illiteracy within a marriage. I mean, that's a no in modern times, because, and there are legal and liability issues too. Your spouse can put you in some serious, legal situations, especially in states where there are common law and so on, so what your spouse do really affects you also too, so paying the bills, I think a conversation has to be made. We must have that conversation. How are we going to pay those things?
Yes.
Do we put everything, what portion do we put in that joint account? You have to decide on that. What portion do I have in my individual accounts and so on? So I think those things are critical. And if you have a child, you have to prepare for the future, Pastor. You have your son. You have to think in terms of college, in terms of high school.
And you have to, I like this forward-thinking idea that you're giving us. I remember, right before my wife and I got married, we decided to do premarital counseling, and in that process, when we sat with the counselor let us know that one of the greatest causes of marital conflict is actually financial problems. And now I'm starting to understand what he was really saying is that people come into marriage without ever having a plan. So, one of the things that we were able to do there is decide how, finances were going to work within the family. And, for many different people, it'll look different. So for my wife and I, for instance, we have separate accounts, but then we have a joint account as well that we give it in. I think that the most important thing, as you kind of put before us, is that we come to an agreement and we have a plan that we're transparent about,
Correct. Correct.
in dealing with it.
And your plan should include certain things. For example, if you have debt, you should have a plan how to get out of debt. If you have to pay a mortgage, how do we pay the mortgage? If you have to do investment, okay, how are we going to invest? Retirement goals. How are we going to save for our kids? So there are some basic things, some basic questions that must be answered. The debt question, how are we going to deal with our debt? How long, right? So we said, how long are we going to stay with our mortgage? We want to kind of clear our mortgage in the next 15 years, in the next 25 years, investment goals. What percentage are we going to invest of our overall income? 15%, 20%, 25%. Retirement goals. When are we going to retire? Some people may say, well, I want to retire at 50. I want to retire at 55. Those are the things that we really have to consider, because as we achieve those goals, by the time you get to maybe 60, 65, then where are we going next? We want to travel. So all those things are important. And Pastor, one common denominator we always talk about, and that takes us back, whatever goals you have, whatever future plans you have, it takes us back to, because you see, it comes back to the budget that we talk about.
The big word.
Yes,
and that's, I think what you're saying, man, it's making it so clear. So this is the first home, that we have been, we're first time home buyers, as they would say and such. And admittedly, one of the things that I haven't really taken time to do is say when we're going to pay the house off. Because they send you this thing and they say you're 455 million payments away from making it. Each week it goes down one. But you're right. We should be thinking forward to, when can we pay this thing off? Because, that the home in itself can become a source of income for us. So, and looking ahead, what you're saying is really an expansion of the budget. So you got your immediate budget, which deals with your income and your expenses for the daily basis, but factored into there should be another level where different percentages are divided up, and it's saying, hey, this is going to the mortgage, this is going to retirement, this one is going to our investment goals and such. And what I'm hearing you saying is, if we do these things, then life will just get easier for us as time goes by.
Because the idea is to be financially independent. And what does that mean? That you're not obligated, no mortgage, no debt, you have financial freedom, you can basically walk away from your job if you want to, and some people, they still enjoy working, but they're not working to pay bills.
Oh yeah, you can leave if you want to. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that it comes, but within the family, because that's a big problem within our society, in that financial literacy is just rampant in our society, and it shouldn't be, because we have so much resources available to us, and if we make use of those resources, it's just astonishing if we take into account and we make financial planning an integral part, right, of our household strategy. The difference it can make in terms of how we allocate our resources. And also, always believe, Pastor, that one of the things we talk about, one of the goals is giving back. Giving back financially, giving back to your church, giving back to individuals, and helping individuals also. And you can only do that within a family, because that becomes an issue too within the family context. Because, Pastor, you may want to give to your mom, your brother, your sister, and your wife may be, well, we have this to take care of, and so you have to take all those external factors into consideration with your finance.
Yes.
Because I know sometimes my wife will say, well, you're like the sugar daddy for your family. Everybody that calls you give, and it's good to give, but you have to take care of your family first.
Yeah,
And you got to take care of God's returning the tithe and the offering too, if that's the commitment that you make.
absolutely. And that's at the budget. That's what I put. The first thing that comes out of my budget, I go ahead and take care of that, and then I line the rest out. But I got a question because I'm hearing you in this family plan. It sounds like you all have a lot of different conversations about it. Do you have a family business meeting or anything like that you do?
we we do not have it as much now, but in the past we sure did. We sat down and we said, okay, we want to. For example, we started off with I think a 25-year 30-year mortgage, and we said, we can't take 30 years to pay off our house. So we refinanced them into rates so we refinanced it to 15, and we said, we could do it in 8. And we take it up to 8, then we took it up to 7. We took care of that. Then we said cars. We're gonna buy the cars, and then you know, we usually get the lowest, the long payment, but we pay off the principal. We cut down on that. Our kids going to school. We decided that my kids went to private school, but I know I was at a university. My kids could go free, so I spent a lot. My biggest budget item was education because that's what I value the most.
Mm-hmm.
But the point about it is that I spent a lot up front, but the returns are tremendous.
Yeah.
So and then you decide, okay, what size house you want, how you're going to go on vacation, when you're going to go on vacation. Those things you got to plan it out, and you got to put it within the budget. You got to put those things within the budget.
Doc, I know I'm taking you out of the way a little bit, but this thing is.
Well, that's the purpose of this conversation.
Yeah. So take us through, if you don't mind, could you take us through what a single family business meeting might look like?
Well, a single business family meeting, it starts off with, okay, and my kids and them are involved too sometimes, and we say, listen, you got to be transparent because I know especially the older folks, we don't want to disclose those children how much money we making.
Yeah.
But we give them even if it's hypothetical, we said, okay, this is what comes into a house, and those are the things that your mom and dad have to take care of. We have to take care of our utility bills, our mortgage, our car payments, and those things, And this is what we can afford, in terms of what we can allow you to pay. And even taking into consideration as your children grow, because then it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So we say that this is what we can afford. Because children will come to you and say, I saw Johnny and Mary across the street, and they have this and that, and they have the iPhone, and and I said we can't afford it. And if you've been having that conversation, then your children would know.
Hey, interesting.
Yeah, you have to. Yes, we really do that.
So you've made the family is kind of where you're kind of standing.
Oh yeah.
So that everybody kind of. It's not a mystery,
No, not at all. And my children know, both my son and daughter, they become astute with finances because they just learned it from home.
That's needed to learn to actually be able to see it. Because I think about it. It's like you said when I grew up, what is made is a very obscure type of thing, but so you don't really have a concept of how money is being spent or, when you have things and when you don't. So you just think that when people aren't doing whatever for you, that they're just being mean to you or something like this, because you don't have any understanding.
Correct.
But I think that you being able to have this meeting, including your kids, that gave them just, they made them a step ahead. So they understood how to work finance from the very beginning.
Correct. And also too, within the relationship too, it helps because you may think about something and will say, well, hey, we cannot afford it at this time. And even if you can afford certain things too, it may not be the best, depending on the decision you and your spouse make, there is affordability. And in these days, there are things that you can get. The question is that, affordability, because you can always borrow, you can go into debt and get it. So you can basically get anything you want to get today, but at what cost?
Right.
At what cost? And I think that it puts a strain on the family when you have a lot of debt. and some of the critical things that you can do. Your kids want to go on field trips, they can't go because you can afford it, because
Mm.
you're
Yeah.
so, you have a car payment that's so high, So I don't see the logic in, I'm driving all those nice cars and my kids cannot go on field trips and those type of things. Those are the type of balancing act you're going to do.
That's
Because within the relationship, Pastor, I always think that the experience is much better than having the toys.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
the toys are just a temporary satisfaction. The experience lasts with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I allocate my budget with our kids. So vacation, we'll spend money on vacation. The other stuff, the clothing and so on, that's important, but that's not critical.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you have to. I think you can build your budget, and basically your family values determine your family priorities, because your budget sends a signal. I can look at your budget and see where your mind is. Because that's where you're going to put that money.
Yeah.
You're going to put that money, on the things that you prioritize. You may not say it, but action speaks louder than words. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, the scripture says, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is also.
Yes,
So,
and that's where you're
there
going
it
to put
is.
it.
You can look at, what you're spending your money on. You can look at your budget or even the lack of a budget and see what it is that you value.
Correct. But that I'm very, 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 involved, and I see the importance of that. I see it. I see the people that take care of the family, have a financial plan. No way, as we said from the beginning, no way each dime that comes into your house where it's going. And it's not penny pinching. It's being a good steward, Pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And you should know. And you, as a family, you should be preparing for your children, if you have children to take care of.
Oh, yeah.
Leave an inheritance for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. In the meantime, though, I make sure I take care of myself now, because these days you have kids. You don't know.
Yeah.
You cannot leave your future in the hands of your kids.
Right. Yeah.
I would
they come back and bless you, but you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yes, but you should plan for yourself, but you should also plan for the future, so you can leave an inheritance. Like you said, like the prodigal son, his father could have said, "Okay, rude boy, come on. I'm not, what do you mean? Give me my inheritance? Not over my dead body." He could have said that, but he said no. He extended grace. He handed over to him, and despite he went out there and just went, but he came back, and the father embraced him. I don't know if I will have all this patience, but it's the first thing I'm saying. Yes, you learned your lesson. Now you're back.
Yeah, that's the goodness of God. That when people mess up and such, that they're able to come back in. But there's also a limitation in the parable, in that we're talking about God the Father. You don't want to go out and waste all yours, because you may not have a place to come back to, unfortunately. So I think that, even thinking back to the text, and we're coming up on our closing time here, but all throughout that parable, of course, we have the overarching theme. Whenever we read the Bible, we want to see what the intended message is. But then when we come back to the text, we can see some subplots and some themes that come beneath it. And there are stewardship principles all over.
Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is.
From the family aspect of everybody knows what the plan is. He's able to come to his father because he knew what the plan was. And I think that's what Dr. Simmons was talking about in the family business meeting, where they were pretty much transparent and letting people know this is how the money works within the home. So they had that same type of system going on there. And then you see the personal finance when he leaves, and he spoils all of his substance and his sustenance with his riotous living and such. So the Bible is letting us know a lot of things about finance within that parable. But I thank you. So you got another word You
Yeah,
got to
one
wrap the
was,
word. Give us
I guess sometimes I think about the father, and he was so wise, because it seemed like the son left, and the young one, the other son that stayed home, he worked hard, but it seemed like the father still accumulated a lot of wealth because he was able to. He's calling his servants,
Mm-hmm.
So he was just an excellent steward, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and he had a big heart too,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and he was willing to. And the son that stayed back, I always say, sometimes, the kid that obeyed all the rules, he didn't break the rules. He played by the rules, And sometimes, that, he's saying, I stayed here, I did all this,
Mercy.
and now this guy went away, and he comes back, and you're embracing him. You're giving him the fattest calves and cows and so on. So it was tough on that young man too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But again, I think the father is wise enough and telling the young man, listen, everything here belongs to you anyway.
Right. And the blessing of it is that son that was at the house, he didn't have to go off and experience, some of those hardships and such.
Yes.
He was staying home, still abiding by the principles and such. So he didn't have to go off and figure out what it was to be in debt, to have to work, these type of jobs that, you didn't want to work and such. Not saying anything about any field of work, but this was a struggle that this young son was, the older son rather, was privileged not to have made.
Yeah. So my last word is that for families, for whether it's dual or single family household, make family planning an integral part
That's
of
good.
your family household. It should be one. If you're not doing it now, start doing it immediately. Start doing it tomorrow morning. Start doing it tonight. Because it's very important.
Amen. I'm with that. I'm gonna let everybody know we appreciate you so much for coming on. And if this has been a blessing to you, what we encouraging you to do is to share. One of the ways you can share is very easy. Whether you're looking at Facebook, if you're looking at us on Facebook, you can just hit the share button. That'll send this onto your page that somebody that's within your concentric circle, your family, your friends, your faith community and such, they'll be able to hear the words that have come forth today from this platform. You're also able to share by the modes of giving. We got a few ways to do it. This is by far and large the easiest way is if you got a cash app, just type in our cash tag. That's $ Temple of Praise SDA Church. And when you're there, and when you do that and you give, you can leave a note as to how you would like to give. If you want to just go ahead and give a tithe or an offering, if you want to give to our window fund or our building fund and such is there, that you're able to do that. Another way that you can make this happen is by visiting www.adventistgiving.org. That's www.adventistgiving.org. Once you get there, what you do is you type in the Temple of Praise Seventh-day Adventist Church. And once you do that, it's going to bring you to a screen. You're able to select local offering categories or and give to some of the ministries we have there, or you can give to our conference ministries there as well. And then lastly, you can do this by mailing it in. You want to mail something in today. I got off the phone with somebody that is willing to be a blessing unto us and mail something in. Our address with the Temple of Praise Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're located in 1985 Green Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44121. I also want to let you know today that there is another opportunity for you to be a blessing unto us, and that is that you would come on out Friday the 6th. That you would come out at 7 p.m. We're having a revival. We're looking at the law of love. These are the 10 commandments and what God requires of us. So come on out on Friday at 7 p.m. If you're not able to make it in person, we've got our Zoom meeting ID down there. You see it, 884-451-5065. Type that on into your Zoom and come on in. We'll also be live via YouTube. That's Temple of Praise SDA Church, or Facebook. You can type in the Temple of Praise SDA Church, or you can use @ChurchThatPrays, and it'll bring you up to our church. But that's going to be it for us this evening. Oh, I got one more announcement. On Tuesday nights, I participate in this ministry with the Patmos Chapel. It's called This Is Really Us. And we've been dealing with some doctrines of the Bible and such, some fundamental doctrines of Christianity. And we participate on that Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. And as always, Wednesday nights, we have our prayer meeting at 7 o'clock. We'll be live at 7:30 and such. But as always, it is a blessing to be able to share with you. We thank God for your viewership and such. And we hope that you're able to share this with somebody else. All right. God bless you.